I don't know if you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, but the last few weeks have gone on somewhat of a detailed sort of rant, if you want to call it, about how
out of MGM Grand Detroit. It's eight-handed max, but we were playing seven-handed at the time, and the buy-in is 200 to 1,000.
so seven-handed, 200 to 1,000, 525 or something, or what?
Yeah, 2-5.
Okay, yeah.
So the effective stack is the under the gun player, and I'm 1450 effective with him.
Okay.
And I'm in the hijack with Ace of Hearts, King of Diamonds.
Okay.
So the button straddles to $10. So that's like, I think they call it a Mississippi straddle.
Right. The button straddles. Okay. Right. Yep.
Right. So the button straddles to 10, small blind limps, big blind limps, under the gun limps. And I'm in the hijack with Ace of Hearts, King of Diamonds. I raise to 60.
So three limps ahead of you. You're in the hijack with Ace of Hearts, King of Diamonds. You raise to 60, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then the cutoff folds, button calls a 60, and then all three limpers call.
So three players in front call. And of course, the button is getting slight. I mean, he's in for 10, so he's getting a slight discount because he's got a price. So,
Right.
So it's five ways, including yourself. Is that right?
Right. Five ways to the flop, 300.
Okay.
And the flop comes ace, king, deuce, rainbow.
Ace, king, deuce, rainbow. Okay. And you have ace, king.
Right.
Yep.
So it checks to me, and I bet 100 into 300. And everyone folds except the under the gun player who calls 100.
So this guy from under the gun over-limped the two blinds that acted first pre-flop because of the Mississippi straddle, right? So he's the third limper in, and then he overcalled your raise. And
right.
He's actually closing the action, though, right, when everybody folds. Like when you bet, everyone's folded, right, back over to him.
Right, exactly. You mean pre-flop?
No,
or,
on the flop. On the flop. Just of course,
on the flop, he's last.
Right, because of course he can be much lighter here than like if you bet and the button called, right, with like three people
right. So that was
behind him.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that. That even pre-flop he could be a little wider, closing the action too.
Yeah.
And then on the flop as well. So anyway, I bet 100 into 300. He calls, and the turn is an offsuit 3. So that completes the rainbow. And the board is ace, king, deuce, 3, with 500 in the pot.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So he checks to me, and so a little background on this player. He was a player I battled with a little bit, and he showed down like a couple big bluffs. So when he checked it over to me on the turn, I was thinking that if he had ace X or king X even, I could check back and let him either own himself on the river or put a bluff in if he had to draw on the flop.
Like if you had Broadway or something like that on the flop.
Right. If you had Broadway or even some type of backdoor flush draw plus like backdoor straight draw. Like this guy was kind of all over the place. He was making strange plays.
By the way, someone's giving you a shout out in the live chat. Nick Schuler says Irwin is a solid reg in Ann Arbor. Is that you? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I know Nick Schuler. Yeah, we play quite a bit.
So what's interesting here is that if you had like pocket kings here, right? I would tend to do this obviously less often. When you have ace king, you do block a fair amount of the villain's pairs. I'm trying to do this out in my head. Like what blocks more if you have ace king, or if you had a set of aces or a set of kings in terms of just his pair of ace or
aces,
pair of king's hands.
Right, I think aces.
Right, I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, if we're taking a look at all pairs of aces and kings, just all pairs, does ace king does you having ace king block more of all pairs of aces and kings, or does a set? I think my mind's about to explode here. I think it's probably pretty close, but I can kind of see what you're saying, like in the sense of if you bet again here, he's just going to peel off a king, and he's going to peel off his gut shots, right? His Broadway gut shots. And if you check, he might just fire out, right? Like if it's a rainbow board, something like that.
Right. And yeah, especially on the river. And when I race pre-flop and then I check the turn on a board that should like favor my range so heavily, perceive that as weakness and then try a big bluff on the river, which he definitely was doing earlier.
So would you?
At least a couple hands.
So would you check back pocket aces here then too?
Yeah, I would be more likely to check back aces here than ace king, just because when I think he calls the 100 on the flop, he's weighted to a lot of ace x.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have pocket aces, there would only be one ace left.
Right.
So I'd have the board like way more locked up.
But you'd probably be prone to bet kings, obviously, more often too, right?
Yeah, I would bet kings because I'm not blocking any of the ace x he could have.
Right. And then just a little bit extra on blockers, like if you had ace queen or ace jack, that would lend itself to actually betting a little bit more than ace king, not because necessarily of the value of it being stronger, but because now there's less of a chance that he has those Broadway straight draws that are going to bluff at the end from up front because you have a jack or a 10 in your hand. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it. And I don't know if you're a Crush Lab Poker subscriber, but the last few weeks have gone on somewhat of a detailed sort of rant, if you want to call it, about how if players are capping themselves pre-flop based upon configuration, and the easiest way to look at this is just if they're not 3-betting and you get a board like this, you know, you can play a game of just like barrel chicken with them because a lot of guys are just always going to 3-bet aces and kings and ace king. So if they're flatting, they don't have it. So, and a lot of these guys will like raise off sets and stuff on the turn. So you could put a guy like for a decision for his whole stack with like ace 9 suited. You have to know if a guy's going to call down or not, but you know, these two, and then you can extrapolate down from that. It's not just ace king. It could even be ace queen X too, for the same reasons, going a little bit further down in a later configuration, like king, queen 3, these two high boards, you could really, really put a shit ton of pressure on somebody. And what's funny is that if they have kept themselves pre-flop, they're supposed to call down with some of those hands. And it might even be the ones, that block, that unblock your Broadway draws. Like ace 9 might be more of a call than like ace jack when you put a shit ton of pressure on him. That's just an aside.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, but okay, so you decide to check it back. So hero checks back?
Yeah, and I guess one more reason behind the check back was that if he had like a worse ace x or potentially king x, there's a chance he could make like 2-pair on the river.
Right.
And then I'd get it in against him versus if I barreled big on the turn, he might like fold out ace 5 or something.
Right.
Okay,
right.
So anyway, we get to the river, and the river's 500, and he leads for 450.
So what was the river?
Oh yeah, sorry. The river was the 10 of clubs.
Okay, so that brings in that actually brings in queen jack, right?
Right, yeah, which was something I was thinking of. So when he leads for 450 into 500, there was only 850 more in his stack. So I was debating between calling and jamming, and then in the end I decided on a jam. Wait a minute,
hold on. Before you tell us what you're going to do here. So he bets 400, right?
Or yeah, he bets 450.
450. And how much did you say he has left?
He has 850 behind.
With 850 behind. Okay. So have you heard of the sort of terminology that I kind of made up and did a YouTube video about, sort of called reverse pot odds before? Pot odds?
I was actually thinking about that.
You're thinking about that at the time. You were thinking about that. Wow, yeah. I'm in your head.
Yeah, no, I watched a lot of your videos for it.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say about this is that I don't even think that this is really all that extreme though in terms of reverse pot odds. Reverse pot odds would come into play here if the guy had like 400 behind and like you had a min raise left, right? Because like when he bets when he bets 450, like if you were to just call, you know, the pot's like 1400. I mean, I guess it's like a half pot size. He's going to get 3-1, right? But there are definitely more extreme situations where if he bets 450 and he has 450 behind and you just min raise, or say like he bets 450 and he's got 200 behind, right? That's where reverse pot odds come into play, where you're getting called by a wider range because of the pot odds. I got to be honest with you. I don't think I would shove here. What's also interesting here too is if you had ace here and you played it the same way, I think it might even be less of a shove.
I would agree that I would shove ace here less than ace king, just because I'm blocking all the ace, or I'm blocking a lot of aces up.
Right.
But the thing was, what I was thinking about at the time was that when I jam, it would be 3,100 about, and it would be 850 for him to call. And
Right.
then on top of that, he wasn't some nitty player where there's some players I would just like snap it off on the river and not even think about jamming.
Well, it's
But this was
2,100, 850 for him to call, right? Because
no, no, I think it's
he's betting 450 into 500. So if you call, it's 14 plus 850 is like 2250, 850 for him to call. That's where I came up with the 3-1 number from. Right?
no. I was jamming for 850 more. So it was I think it was a 1,300 effective jam on the river.
Right. So if he goes 450 into 500, okay, that's 950. If you jam for 1250 total or 1,300 total, right? That's only like 22 or 23, 850 for him to call, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, no, you're right, you're right. I
No,
was thinking I calculated it
right.
wrong.
So
It was 3,100 total.
right, but that brings it back though to the whole reverse pot odds things, because what in your
Right.
example where he is getting 4-1 or 5-1, you can make these thinner value raises, but that's what I noticed off the top is that this doesn't look like a reverse pot odds situation to me because you do have some money behind. So I would be concerned here. I mean, what do you think he would ever bet here for value that you get called by when you jam here at the end?
I was thinking he could have like ace 10, king 10, ace deuce, ace 3. Those are like the value hands I was thinking I could get called by. And additionally, he was like a player I was sort of battling with. So if he had like ace jack, he might call it off. Maybe even ace 9 if he thought I was trying to make a move.
Boy, he's gonna bet call off here with ace 9 after you check back turn and then raise all in the river. Plus he's got his slow plays, right? I mean, what are you losing to here that are slow plays would be like a deuce deuce. Obviously queen jack makes sense. I don't know if he's as wide as playing 4-5 suited or some shit like that from up front. That's maybe another consideration. But if he has like all 16 queen jack combos, I don't know. I seems to me like this really wants to be a call for me with this money behind, not being able to put himself, like, I can't really put him in that extreme reverse pot odds situation, and seems very, very optimistic to go bet call and get a better than ace king. But okay, so you jam.
Right. So I jam for 850 more. I think it was like 1,300 effective.
Right.
And then he goes into the tank. He goes into the tank for like at least a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then at this point, I'm hoping for a call. And then eventually he does call, and I flip over the ace king, and he shows 4-5 of diamonds.
4-5, huh? God, there's a lot of nit rollers around here. What is he tanking with? He thinks you have queen
That's
jack,
what I was so confused about. That was I think that's what maybe he put me on when I check back the turn and bet so small on the flop.
I mean, I think that this is sometimes where people will get a little bit jaded when they don't make. You called this one in. I do think that I would just call, but
okay.
I have made, value raises. I value owned myself. Here, I'll give you guys a little bonus here after I talk through this one, because I'll go over a hand that I did for the podcast tomorrow really quick. But what I was going to say here is that I think this is where a lot of people will, they sometimes get in this whole thing like, oh, like, you can't get called by worse. You can't get called by worse because like they'll see like a guy tank here with like 4-5 for like several minutes, but he wasn't really, I don't think, actually considering folding. He's just fucking tanking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's just like, and he was and he was doing that all night too. Like a couple players made a comment about how slow he was playing essentially. I think he just wanted the drama maybe from tanking and then calling with the second nuts. But in any case, I was thinking about the jam at the end. Like he gets 3-1, and I was just worried that I wasn't going to get max value from worse aces up that he would call with.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.